Hello everybody, this is Jeff Janess. Welcome to our 5th lab exercise on raster analysis. Here we're going to make use of two of our general raster tools, the focal statistics tool and the math with raster layers functions, to create a dataset called the Topographic Position Index, or TPI. TPI is a really useful way to identify hills and valleys in the landscape based on a DEM, or digital elevation model. Now, the basic logic behind the TPI is that the relative elevation of a raster cell compared to the average elevation in the circular region around that cell indicates whether that cell is higher or lower than the surrounding elevation. A positive relative elevation indicates the cell is higher than its neighbors, which means it might be laying on a hill or a ridgeline. A negative relative elevation means the cell is lower than its neighbors and suggests it's in a sink or in a valley. Now, calculating TPI is actually really easy, as you'll see, but it's not always easy to decide on how big a circular neighborhood you should use to compare elevations with. Should the elevation of a cell be compared with only those neighbors within 100 meters or so, or should we be looking out as far as a kilometer? It's very difficult to know what the right neighborhood size should be. In wildlife analysis, we sometimes try to estimate the perceptual range of an animal. How far out are they paying attention? And we can use that as a guideline for the size of neighborhood we use. Another common strategy is to pick some topographic feature that you want to classify as a hill or valley, and then try multiple TPI neighborhood sizes until you feel like you're capturing that feature the way you want. Then you just use that neighborhood size on the rest of the landscape. For example, if I'm trying to capture huge geographic features like the Grand Canyon, I might try a series of neighborhood sizes until I find one that works for me. If I start at 1,800 meters, I see the smaller drainages in the canyon stand out. Those are the areas in blue in this image, but the larger canyon itself is still a mix of red and blue, so I need to try larger neighborhood sizes. If I pop it up to 3,600 meters, then again at 7,500 meters, I see that the blue region is starting to expand across the canyon, but it's still not quite what I want. If I try it once more at 15,000 meters, then I'm seeing a data set that I can use. This one would be easy to reclassify based on TPI values into a data set that captured the true shape of the canyon. Other than that, I don't really know of a good, defensible way to always pick the right neighborhood size. It can be a tricky question. Now, there is one cool thing about this flexible neighborhood size, though, and that it allows us to run TPI at multiple spatial scales. It allows us to classify hills and valleys the way a mouse would perceive them, and then again the way a mountain bighorn would perceive them, or even as a highway department might perceive them. So we can use different neighborhood sizes for different purposes. Now back to the Grand Canyon example. These smaller neighborhoods work well for me if I wanted to capture the smaller side drainages rather than the overall canyon. I could even go down to a 900-meter neighborhood to get the finer scale drainages if I wanted. Even better, we can do nested TPIs at different scales. If we get a negative TPI value in a local small neighborhood, we can understand it to be in a local drainage. If that same cell gets a positive TPI at a larger neighborhood, though, then we can understand it to be a small drainage on a larger hill, meaning an upland drainage. If TPI values of both neighborhoods are negative, then this might be a deeply incised drainage or stream. So you can capture some really subtle and interesting landform categories by using multiple TPIs at different scales. Now, this lab exercise will only calculate the actual TPI values, but people often take it another step and reclassify the TPI into landform categories like hills or drainages, so you get a raster of categories that say hills or drainages. Positive values mean hills and negative values mean drainages. But then what do values near zero mean? Well, all that means is that the cell elevation is the same as the average of its neighbors. That could happen in two cases. It could happen on a flat plane, and it could also happen if the cell is on a slope where half the circular neighborhood is above it and half is below it. Therefore, when people reclassify TPI into landform categories, they also look at the slope of a cell when the TPI is near zero. If the slope is flat, they classify the cell as a flat plane landform. If the slope is higher than some threshold, then they classify the cell as a mid-slope landform. Now, Andrew Weiss first presented this poster and introduced this concept at an Esri conference back in 2001. His poster also discusses some interesting alternative ways to calculate the difference between a cell's elevation and the elevation of its neighbors. And if you'd like to download this poster and take a look, please navigate to this address here. There's also links you can click on in the lab exercise document. Now, if you like, I also have a manual and a poster for an older GIS tool that I wrote many years ago that describes the methods in detail if you want to read more. And these two links will get you to those documents. Okay, let's get started. Now, in this demonstration, I'm going to be using ArcGIS Pro version 3.3.2. So if you're using a different version, then the tool windows might look a little different. Also, the tools we'll be using are available in a few extensions in ArcGIS Pro. We're going to be using the Spatial Analyst extension. So let's make sure that the licensing is turned on. We just come to the project, go to licensing. Look here in the ArcGIS Pro extensions. Go down to Spatial Analyst and see if it's turned on, and I do have it turned on, so I'm ready and set to go. If you don't have it turned on, you'll have to click on the Configure Your Licensing options to turn that on. Now, we'll be using the Focal Statistics tool, and we'll also be applying some math to raster layers. So please take a look at the first lecture video in this module for more details on these two methods. Now, also, if you're interested, I've got the steps to calculate TPI recorded into a model in Model Builder that you're welcome to download, play with, and modify if you like. Just click on this link down here. It's in the lab exercise document. It'll let you download a geodatabase that has a model that creates TPI. It also does several other things we're doing in this module. So it's got several tools in there. There are tools you can run directly if you just want to create these different data sets that we're going to be describing. There are also models that you can open up and edit to kind of get a better sense of how they work and how these data sets are generated. Okay, first up, let's load up the DEM that we're going to be using. We'll also load up the Semester D unit. There's homework exercises later on that will use both the Semester D unit and the DEM, so let's just get them both in there. They are in the Class Data folder. Let's come to Folders, Class GIS Data. They're in the folder called Raster Functions. So we're going to load up DEM and Semester D unit. Now I've already got a map here for the TPI data, so I'm just going to right-click here and add it to that map. They'll pop them right up in there. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is calculate the neighborhood mean, and this will give us the average elevation in the neighborhood around each cell. Later on, we'll subtract that neighborhood mean from the actual DEM to get the final TPI. So a two-step process here. First up, neighborhood mean, that is in the Focal Statistics. So search for that. We're going to be using the Spatial Analyst version. Okay, we're going to select the DEM as the input raster. We're going to call the output raster neighborhood mean, and this is up to you what you want to call it, just as long as you remember. We're going to do a circular neighborhood because those make a lot more sense for this kind of analysis. And we're going to do a radius of 200 map units, and this means 200 meters because the DEM is in a meter-based projection. So 200 units are map, and the statistic will be calculated as the mean. So this will give us a new raster with the average elevation within 200 meters of every cell. We're going to turn off the Ignore No Data. When we turn off Ignore No Data, that means that for neighborhood means for cells that are near the edge here, well, part of the neighborhood is outside the raster. If we turn this off, then that means if it spots any cells that are outside the raster, it won't calculate a mean. Our new raster will actually be inset about 200 meters from the original DEM. All right, looks good to go. Let's hit run. All right, it's looking just like we expect. It's inset 200 meters from the edge. Cool, cool. Now let's confirm that we're all on the same page here. I have a range of values going from 2,139.89 meters up to 2,299.01. That's what I have written here. So make sure that you're getting these same values. Otherwise, if not, then it's possible that you have a different radius, or maybe your units are not map units, or maybe you're just not using a circle. So let's make sure we're all got the same data here. It's kind of important because, like I said, you're going to be using this in your homework later, and so I'm going to be checking your answers, so I really want you to have calculated it the same way. Okay. Next step, we're halfway through TPI. Let's close this window. Next step, we're going to open up the minus tool. This lets us subtract one raster from another. So let's come here. We're going to search for minus, the spatial analyst version. Okay. Now we're going to subtract the neighborhood mean from the original DEM. So the DEM is raster 1. The neighborhood mean that we just calculated is raster 2. Okay, let's call it TPI for Topographic Position Index. Okay, that should be all we need. Just hit run. Okay, we are on our way. So now we have a new raster that ranges from -31 up to +48. So the negative values mean that this cell is lower than its neighbors. The positive values mean it's higher than its neighbors. The positive values are in a light color, so you can see the ridge lines here are in white. The drainages and the ridge bottoms are in dark color. So we can easily see where the relatively high and relatively low places are, and we can use this to guide us in classifying the landscape as drainage or hills or ridges. Now, like I said earlier, a lot of times people take this another step and do a reclassification function on it, and they'll actually say TPI values greater than X, we're going to call ridge lines, less than X, we're going to call it valleys. If it's near 0, we'll call it either a flat plane or we'll call it mid-slope somewhere, and that distinction is based on what the actual slope is. So people will calculate slope alongside the TPI and use both rasters to make that distinction. But in the meantime, this is good for now. All right, thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate you taking part. Like I said, you can download that toolbox. It has a tool that does this already ready to go. In our next lab exercise, we're going to look at how to reclassify the aspect data set we generated earlier. So we'll try out the reclassify tool. And I hope to see you there. Thanks so much. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.